granddaddy of them all. Number 5 Iowa, number 6 Stanford. The Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual. Coverage begins New Year's Day at 5 Eastern on ESPN and ESPN Radio.
The topics are hot. The discussion is heated. The First Take podcast starts now.
Here's what's ahead on the podcast. Mark Wahlberg will be in studio telling us about his new movie. Plus, Odell Beckham is big time in prime time for the G-Men. And are the Panthers having too much fun during games? That and so much more, and we'll get into it.
Guys are blitzing the safeties. They burn him here. Miller, end zone. Miami touchdown. Tannehill downfield to Stills. Stills is in for the touchdown. Eli rolling, throwing it end zone. And it is ruled that Beckham has scored.
How does he catch these footballs?
Manning, deep shot, Beckham wide open. Odell, so long.
We obviously knew what happened yesterday in the division, so we had to stay on track.
Good morning, good people. Welcome into First Take. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Coming up, Mark Wahlberg will join us on the show. That's going to be fun. Skip Bayless, Molly Qerim here with you in studio. Stephen A. joins us from New York, who almost nailed that score last night. Good call.
What's going on, y'all? How you doing?
Good call on the score.
Yeah.
When they don't even cover the best receiver in football for the 31st point. You just let him run free down the middle for 84 yards. And I have to talk about this and give you credit for nailing the... Oh, please.
Well, I don't know if I deserve credit, but you certainly deserve blame for picking Miami.
Ouch.
It was with my heart, as you well know.
Oh, so that's the excuse. Huh? That's the excuse. Okay. Okay. Whatever you say.
Just one of them days, people. Let's get into it. Fins down. The Giants get the job done on Monday Night Football with a 31-24 victory in Miami. The G-Men snap a 3-game losing streak and are now in a 3-way tie atop the NFC East with the Eagles and Redskins at 6 and 7. Really, though, Stephen A., how impressed were you by the Giants last night?
Well, I was impressed. I certainly wasn't impressed with their defense, although they made key stops as the game waned. But it just seemed like they were going to go back and forth offensively because neither team was able to stop the other. But Eli Manning was nothing short of sensational last night. 27-31 for 337 yards, 4 touchdowns, not an interception at all. He was incredibly impressive, completing about 87% of his passes, which was a career high. Connecting with Odell Beckham Jr., who I just think we're at the point where we simply can't deny that he's the best receiver in football right now. The way he has looked. You think about Megatron, you think about Dez Bryant. You know that Megatron and his knees isn't always there for him. You know that Dez Bryant had to come off of his injury. We've seen the reemergence of Larry Fitzgerald to some degree. Antonio Brown is absolutely positively no joke. A.J. Green. We see some of these guys, but the stuff that I'm seeing from Beckham is just sensational. It's just spectacular. And when you consider the fact that there is no Victor Cruz, that for weeks upon weeks that it was just about Eli Manning to Beckham Jr. because Ruben Randle was an inconsistent presence. The Giants' offensive line was shaky. Their running game was virtually non-existent. But one week after another, you could consistently rely on the spectacular from Odell Beckham Jr. If he's not the best wide receiver in football from a clear-cut perspective, we at least need to start talking about him in that light. That's just the way that I look at it. But Rashad Jennings showed up and ran the football effectively. Eli Manning was absolutely spectacular. So was obviously Odell Beckham Jr. Ruben Randle had a touchdown catch along with Ty. I just look at them and I say, hey, it's impressive. I can't deny it. But I'm not going to get too high about it because it was against the Miami Dolphins, who I don't believe has been much of a team or an organization over the last couple of years, ever since Stephen Ross made the egregious mistake of hiring Joe Philbin as a head coach, a former offensive coordinator who didn't even call plays in Green Bay, for crying out loud. It still leaves everybody in South Beach scratching their head, and that's a lot to overcome. Dan Cunningham, I think, has done a decent job. He hasn't been god-awful or anything like that.
Campbell.
But clearly there needs to be some – Dan Campbell, I'm sorry. Dan Campbell. But there clearly needs to be somebody with some cachet running the show in Miami, and that just doesn't appear to be him at this moment in time. So it was impressive on the New York Giants. I was very impressed with Eli Manning and, of course, Odell Beckham Jr., but I'm not going to get overly excited because of who they were going up against last night. which is a very mediocre Miami Dolphins squad whose franchise is in the hands of Ryan Tannehill on offense and Ndamukong Suh on defense, who looked flat out exhausted for most of the second half.
I think mediocre is being too nice to Miami. I think it's a bad football team, but I will give your football team this much. You finally actually took a fourth quarter lead, and you held on to the fourth quarter lead without giving it back. That was progress for the New York Football Giants. And I will certainly give you this. I don't think I've ever, well, obviously the stats back me up, but I've never seen Eli with a hotter hand. That was definitely good Eli from start to finish, 27-31. But he was shooting the equivalent of fish in a barrel, or maybe in this case, dolphin in a barrel, because that secondary, the Dolphins, is not very good. And speaking of not very good, your Giants defense still ranks dead last in the National Football League in yards allowed and passing yards allowed, and still gave up 363 yards to a below average, I'll give it that, Miami offense. 24 points allowed. Miami was up 24-17 mid-third quarter. It was 24 all going to the fourth quarter. So I appreciate the fact you're not standing up and beating your chest about your New York Football Giants today over that. Ryan Tannehill, who I've never loved, and I jokingly said I'm going to be in his corner tonight at the end of yesterday's show. That was a big mistake on my part, because everything I don't like about Ryan Tannehill manifested itself when I needed him most last night. He just doesn't make enough big plays. He was 3 for 13 on passes that traveled beyond 15 yards, and I counted 4 times he missed receivers who were behind your pass defense, who could have at least made a big play if not scored a touchdown. 3 times his receivers dropped medium-range throws that would have been pretty significant, might have changed the football game. And then we get to the game-breaking play that I mentioned at the top of the show. Can you please explain to me how, on a key play of the game with the score tied, you ignore, and I give you this, he's the best receiver in football right now. I don't think there's any question. Antonio Brown might have a little argument, but just in game-breaking speed and breakability, catchability, there's nobody like this kid. And he basically runs right through a defense in which the corners seem to be playing one defense and the safety seem to be playing another defense. And he is ignored and uncovered. Odell Beckham Jr. And Eli, you could just see his body language sort of twitch, like on high alert, like, oh my God, he's wide open, and I'm going to lob it out there to him. And he goes 84 yards for what turned out to be the winning time. What are you doing? It was like some bad intramural football game. I don't know. I'd never seen it quite like that on that kind of play. And then, if you will, speaking of Odell Beckham Jr., the best receiver in football, is it now possible that the league is driving his bandwagon? Because I got to tell you, it seemed to me that on 2 other key Odell Beckham Jr. plays in the game, the 24-all touchdown and the 3rd and 3 play at the end of the game that killed the clock, it seemed like the league was all about giving him the benefit of the doubt. If we could see the play that was the 24-all touchdown in which he made a sensational play to get his toes down in the end zone, everybody seemed to fixate on that part. But then as he goes to the ground, Odell Beckham Jr., silly me, I was under the impression that you cannot use the ground to help you retain control of the football. Well, and that's exactly what he did. He needed the ground to help him control. He slid the ball on the ground. Really? That's a catch? I didn't know. Well, maybe there's a new definition this week.
If your hands don't leave the football and the football isn't bobbled in any way, then it's a catch. Maybe Des Bryant and you can learn lessons from that. Oh. That's number one.
Maybe the rules changed.
Number two, if you recall, they ruled it an incomplete pass, and then Beckham, just vehemently implored Coach Coughlin to challenge the play. It was challenged, reviewed, and corrected. Number 3, on the third on the third down play where he caught that 6-yard catch to end the game. He had possession of the football.
He did not.
You can talk about
that ball hit the ground.
Yes, he did.
Can we
he
see
most
that,
certainly
please?
did.
That ball hit the ground.
Go ahead and watch it.
I said it
Go ahead and watch
that
it.
Ball hits
Go
the
ahead
ground.
and watch it. He had his hand cuffed under the ball. He caught the football.
Hits turf.
He caught
the ball is hitting the ground. But it's okay. Game over. Because New York, the league office wants him to be the star that he can be. I think the league office would love to see the Giants in the playoffs. So you're saying it wasn't a catch. So you're saying it wasn't a catch. It wasn't a touchdown catch, and it wasn't a play where I saw his hands touch the football and his hands under the football. I saw the same play you saw. We have two different versions. Surprise, surprise. Because anytime it's a pick that's different from what you project, there's got to be a mistake. There's got to be a conspiracy. It
can't just be that you're wrong. Oh, please, you see what you want to see. Nobody is as arbitrary and as selective with their eyesight as you. Okay, so just stop it. In the end, Odell Beckham Jr. caught the touchdown pass. He not only that, he caught the third down to get the first down, which ultimately closed out the game. The Miami Dolphins, a bad team, one you basically allude to being pathetic, lost the football game, and that is that. Now let's move on. Let's move forward. Let's think about the Giants against the Panthers, because Ted Ginn Jr. against that Giants secondary, I'm scared to death. I'll be the first to admit it. With his speed, him and Odell Beckham Jr., even though obviously Odell Beckham is a considerably better pass catcher, but good Lord, the speed with Ginn and his ability to get behind receivers, I'm frightened to death at what he could end up doing this coming weekend. But don't work yourself up. Getting all in a tizzy about the Miami Dolphins. Please. Okay. Let's stop that nonsense.
Okay.
They're not worth it.
I'll let that one go. I give you that one. So now you have to play the Carolina Panthers, albeit at home, and the Eagles have to play the Arizona Cardinals, albeit at home, and the Redskins have to play the Buffalo Bills, albeit at home. Do you realize none of the three I just mentioned in the NFC least are favored to win those games at home, just for the record? None.
I do realize that, but I also realize, first of all, let me say to you, let me grab a piece of tissue here, because I'm getting emotional right now, because I can't believe that you mentioned the other three teams and didn't mention your Cowboys. I'm so proud. I'm so proud that you did that. That's a beautiful moment for me, because God knows we didn't need to hear about them. But I would remind you that while they lost this week and the other three teams won, and I'm sure you didn't see that coming. So anything could happen. Yeah, certainly none of them are favored, but I think at least one of them will win this weekend. I don't know which one, but I think at least one of them will win this weekend.
Which one?
We'll see.
Which one?
Well, who are the Redskins playing again?
Buffalo,
because I know the Eagles got Arizona. Well, I would say the Redskins have a better chance of beating Buffalo than Philly has of beating Arizona, and the Giants have of beating Carolina. Either way, all three teams in the division are tied for first place, 2 games ahead of that no-name team at the cellar dwellers.
So
just in a complete waste of my time that aren't worth mentioning.
I'm terrible at math. I just can't do it. I'm actually pretty good at math. Yeah. But anyway, the point is, yes. So somehow, some miraculous way, my Cowboys beat the Jets at Jerry World on Saturday night. And all three of those teams managed to lose at home. What would the standings be in the East? 1 game back?
Well, I don't recall. I'm only paying attention to the relevant teams that are tied for first place. I don't even know who that 4th team is. It's a complete waste of all of our times. And so we got to focus on the Redskins, the Eagles, and the Giants, because they're all that matters right now in the NFC East.
Well,
that other team is a waste of time.
That delusion, that's okay with me.
It's a waste of time.
I can let you have that. You beat the Dolphins. You deserve to gloat.
That's right.
And you deserve to delude yourself.
No gloating. I said don't gloat, because they're the Dolphins. Yep. No reason to gloat for beating the Dolphins.
Yeah.
I've got some facts I'd like to share. Eli posted the highest completion percentage by any quarterback this season with at least 20 attempts, better than Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. And through 25 games, Beckham has more receptions and receiving yards than any player in NFL history and ranks 2nd in TDs. After 26 years of waiting for baseball to change its mind, Pete Rose finally received his long-awaited answer, and it's certainly not what he hoped for. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred has never made it more clear than he did Monday that Pete Rose will not only remain on baseball's ineligible list, but also that his status will never change as long as Rose is alive. So he will never be employed by a major league or minor league organization again in his life. Stephen A., is this fair or foul?
Well, to me, it's incredibly unfair. That's been my position, and I know that my man Skip Bayless is diametrically opposed to my position. That's why we do the show that we do, because we usually don't think alike. We don't agree on a lot of different things, and that's fine. I want to state for the record, Skip and Molly, that in no way am I trying to absolve Pete Rose from what he did. We know that Pete Rose gambled on baseball. We know that it's the cardinal rule. Signs are up there, Rule 21, prohibiting gambling on the sport of baseball, put there by Peter Ueberroth, a former commissioner of Major League Baseball. We understand all of that. We know that Pete Rose is a pathological liar. We know that he has been that way for quite some time. We also know that he was a gambling addict. We know his treatment towards the late Bart Giamatti, his conduct during the investigation didn't help matters. Special counsel John Dowd, Faye Vincent, former commissioner. We know how they all feel. We know how egregious Pete Rose's acts were. Nobody's trying to defend that. My issue, and why I believe this is foul, is because this is the United States of America. And I simply challenge folks out there, whether it be Dowd or anybody else, I would simply ask them this question. While no one is questioning the veracity of their information, the facts that they presented, Pete Rose is clearly in no position morally, ethically, or just from a common sense perspective to deny anything that they have put forth. I ask a simple question, and that is this. Where is your compassion? Where's your decency? The man has been gone from the sport for 26 years. He is 74 years old. He is a three-time, three-time champion, 17-time All-Star, all-time hits leader. By the way, I never heard about Major League Baseball giving the money back that he helped generate for the sport when he was performing, whether it was winning championships with the Reds or the Phillies, whether it was him chasing Joe DiMaggio's single-season consecutive hit streaks, consecutive games hit streak with 56. He stopped at 44. The list goes on and on as it pertains to the accolades that this man put forth throughout his illustrious career, a career spanning about 24 years in which he batted over 316 times. And he had a lifetime batting average of 303. I understand that you want to look at him and you want to say, this guy was a despicable human being. Well, we all know there's plenty of despicable human beings that are in the Hall of Fame. They may not have gambled on baseball, fair enough, but they were despicable nevertheless. And in a society where we forgive so many people for doing so many egregious things, it's one thing to lack compassion. It's another thing entirely to be so flagrant with it, so unapologetic about it, coming across as if you are so holier than thou. I listen to folks talk about Pete Rose, and it just blows my mind because what we can't deny is what he did on a baseball field. Yeah, he bet on baseball. He bet on baseball as a player manager, as Outside the Lines revealed last June on their reports, which obviously influenced Commissioner Rob Manfred. We knew before then he probably had bet on baseball as a manager for the Cincinnati Reds, although he didn't bet against his team, so he says. Nobody believes it. But in the end, what it comes down to is the credentials. The Hall of Fame credentials speak for itself. And by Rob Manfred refusing to reinstate Pete Rose back into the sport of Major League Baseball, he's essentially ensuring, although he directly has nothing to do with it because he doesn't have that authority, he basically is ensuring that he will never be acknowledged as a Hall of Famer. When one could make the argument, all you got to do is induct him into the Hall of Fame and tell the good and the bad about him, but still acknowledge him for the great player that he was. The fact that they're trying to erase that history, I find incredibly egregious, uncompassionate, and dare I say anti-American. I'm sad today for Pete Rose because I think any human being deserves better than what he's getting based on his transgression. If he was a murderer, that's different. But based on his transgression, I think it's despicable what they're doing.
Despicable.
I really do. Yes, I use that word.
Definitely diametrically opposed here. I don't have a drop of sadness for Pete Rose. This man, let's start with this. The recent evidence offered by Outside the Lines that this man did, in fact, bet on baseball as a player. There was always the issue of, I only bet when I was managing, which I found egregious enough in and of itself. But now, player and manager. And in those days, no internet gambling, so you're betting with illegal bookmakers. You are dealing with bad people who could do bad things to you, especially if you happen to fall into debt with said bookmakers. It's why there is a Rule 21 to guard the very integrity and credibility of the sport. And trust me, those bookmakers back in his playing days watched carefully when Pete did not bet on his team on a certain pitcher who was pitching that day, because it signaled them, aha, he might not think they can win today. It's bad business. And before I proceed, let me quote the great Bob Nightingale in USA Today, in which he points out, it's no secret why there has never been another known player who has gambled on baseball since Rose's suspension. He became the poster player for Rule 21. This is why you don't break this rule. And it put the fear of God in every player since he was suspended and banned. And then we look at what's happened lately. Well, let's just look at the timeline here. Did Pete ever, to your point about how sorry you feel for him, did he ever come completely clean about his gambling in the formation of the Dow report? No, he did not. He came clean to try to sell a book. That was the first time he came clean, but not all the way clean. And then recently in interviews with the commissioner, he first said he no longer bets on baseball, then amended that and clarified later in the conversation, yeah, I still bet on baseball. Really? So we want to lift the ban on that man? And remember, Stephen A., the ban doesn't mean he's banned from life. He's not locked up. It's not un-American, because he's allowed to participate in any ceremonial baseball activity. He's allowed to be an analyst on Fox, obviously. He's allowed to go hawk his signature at every Cooperstown Hall of Fame week, sets up shop there, sets up shop in an office in Vegas and autographs his memorabilia. He has some of his memorabilia at the Hall of Fame, but not a plaque, because we're not going to cross that line. And I'm glad a statement needed to be made now and forevermore. No. And that's what Pete Rose stands for. And how can you feel sorry for that?
Well, first of all, because I think you're missing the boat here, to be quite honest with you. And once again, I'm going to reiterate the word despicable, and I'll tell you why. Skip Bayless, in Rob Manfred's statement yesterday, it also alluded to, if not dare I say said, that during Giamatti's investigation with John Dowd, and ultimately Faye Vincent obviously got involved and what have you, during that period of time, what they wanted was they were willing to give Pete Rose some kind of a break if indeed he had admitted what he was doing and also acknowledged that he had a problem, because he was perceived as being a gambling addict. So my point to you, what addict do you know comes clean unless they're absolutely forced to? Alcoholics, drug addicts, the list goes on and on. They fight to the death. They try to die with the lie, per se, if they can get away with it. We all know that. So you're willing to admit that it was, meaning them, Skip Dowd and those guys. They're willing to admit that it was an addiction. They're willing to admit that it was a problem. Okay? So we're sitting here and we give breaks and throw mulligans to folks that have problems all the time. But when it comes to Pete Rose, we don't want to do that. Why? Because he's despicable and unlikable. Well, last time I checked, Mark McGwire was considered relatively despicable before he was chasing Roger Maris's single-season home run record. Then somebody in PR, whomever, got together with him, told him, you got to embrace this. This is good for you. It's good for baseball. And what he did in lying his way to that single-season home run record, all juiced up and all of this other stuff, trying to act like it was just an andro supplement in his locker, or on his locker stall. He sat up there, hugged the Roger Maris family, hoodwinked the sports sport of baseball and everybody else, allowed them to ride his coattails, knowing he was cheating. Okay? What he does? He gets a hitting job in a job as a hitting coach in Major League Baseball when the great Tony La Russa decides to bring him back in. It was only after he sat down and talked to Major League Baseball via Bob Costas that all of that ultimately transpired. I'm saying that I don't have a problem with it, but we seem to be very arbitrary in who we're willing to forgive and why we're willing to forgive them. Whether you like Pete Rose or not should be irrelevant. His behavior should be irrelevant. At the end of the day, it's what he did. It's about how egregious it was. And it's the fact that now, 26 years later, do you believe the message has been sent and received loud and clear that there should be no gambling in baseball? I think we would all acknowledge we've received the message. So now it comes down to, at 74 years of age, where is your compassion? When you got Major League Baseball players all over the place that are sitting there and say, nobody makes any excuse or apologies for Pete Rose. What the players say is, we got the message. Damn. Can y'all have some kind of compassion for the man? That's what they're saying. And I don't have a problem with that.
I don't think the old-time players think that. And by the way, did he go fix?
What? The old-time players think what?
That we should show compassion for him.
They think that?
They do not think that. I don't know if you're talking about
they do not think that.
Yeah.
They do not think that, but other players today think so.
Okay. All right, but they don't know. They haven't studied this, I don't believe. But here's the point. To your point. Did Pete Rose try to fix his gambling problem? Not to my knowledge, not to baseball's knowledge.
No credible evidence of a reconfigured life.
Like that was the operative word. Did he try to reconfigure his life? Did he show contrition? Did he show any remorse? According to our new commissioner, not a drop. And he finally just said, I'm sorry, I can't go there.
But look at what they're trying to accomplish here, Skip. If Pete Rose is asking for you to reinstate him and him be employed in the sport of Major League Baseball, we can go back and forth as to, based on his present behavior, whether you want that to happen. That's fair. But what we're really speaking about here is a process that facilitates the acknowledgement of his greatness as a valid Hall of Famer. And anything that impedes that is what I'm averse to. I'm saying 4,256 hits, a lifetime 303 batting average, 17 All-Stars. There is no doubt. I'm saying there is no doubt. So what they're understand, Skip, what they're trying to accomplish here. What they're trying to say is, because he bet on baseball, we want you to forget that he ever existed. And over time, if he's never acknowledged, you will never, I'm talking about young people on the come up. Skip, they'll never know who Pete Rose was, because Major League Baseball essentially is trying to disavow any knowledge of this man's Hall of Fame greatness. That's my belief. And that's what I have a problem with.
I mean,
yeah, they are.
The stats are the stats.
What's the Hall of Fame
they stand
for?
By themselves.
What's the Hall of Fame for? Hold on. I've never seen Babe Ruth. I wasn't born when he was playing. I don't know all about him.
I know all the numbers.
But we know all about him in part because he was so great as a player. They acknowledged his greatness with Hall of Fame credentials. You don't see that. If you're not in the Hall of Fame, chances are you could potentially be forgotten. I know in today's age, social media and beyond, people say they'll never forget you. But in the end, if the Major League Baseball is not willing to validate and acknowledge your greatness, your performance, the objective is for you to be forgotten. But they never gave that money back that man helped generate for that sport. They exploited and profited off of him.
Well,
now you want to forget him.
He got paid a lot.
It's not right.
Okay.
It's not right.
All right. Last
it's not
quick
right.
point.
There's no compassion.
I got to make this point, because when you talk about despicable human being, I got to tell you, I actually covered a portion of that hitting streak you're talking about when he got to 44 games, going after DiMaggio's 56 in 1978. As great an interview as I ever encountered in my whole career. Just engaging, disarming, always completely accessible. Anybody who ever has interviewed Pete Rose will tell you he's a great guy to interview. I love to interview him. So don't, you got to separate the two. He's gotten miles and miles out of his personality. Anybody who comes into contact with him loves him. And I still think a lot of people still know him as Charlie Hustle, and he has a place in a lot of hearts, at least of the Reds fans.
I'm talking about a younger generation.
Okay.
I'm talking about a younger generation on the come up, and more importantly, just as important, Skip, is this. I find it ironic that we're even having this argument when you consider the fact that Major League Baseball supports fantasy sports, which in some way is gambling as well.
That's a whole nother thing.
I'm just saying. But it just amazes me.
Okay,
it just amazes me.
Now you've opened a whole nother can of worms, and we probably don't have time to get into it. We'll do that later.
Yes, we don't.
Sure.
I think it's apples and oranges, but that's just me.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Great debate, guys. Pete Rose will speak today at his Sports Bar and Grill in Vegas at 2 p.m. Eastern regarding, obviously, this issue.
The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. The Houston Cougars are now 12-1 and have an offense that's among the most explosive in the nation.
He's gone. Touchdown.
They'll face a Florida State defense that ranks 5th in points allowed, plus Dalvin Cook, who ran for over 1,600 yards. Number 9, Florida State. Number 18, Houston. The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Coverage begins at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, New Year's Eve on ESPN Radio.
Meanwhile, the Panthers have drawn criticism all season long for their celebrations, and new outrage resurfaced Sunday after Cam Newton, Jonathan Stewart, and 15 other players posed for a photo on the sidelines during their 38-0 blowout victory against Atlanta. Here's Ron Rivera on whether he's bothered by his team's celebration.
No, I mean, I just want to make sure our guys are focused on what we're doing. I mean, it's, you know, again, it's just one of those things. I mean, I can't see everything that goes on the sideline, and you know, as long as our guys aren't doing anything malicious or hurting anybody, I'm not going to worry about those things. I mean, if it is, you know, I know, you know, it's something that I need to address, I'll address it. But one thing I did tell these guys: keep your personality. You know, keep who you are, keep true to who you are. And that's important because, you know, that's what makes them who they are as football players as well as people. So, you know, if you know, we're disappointing some people, I apologize for that. But, you know, this is who we are and this is how we're going to do our thing.
All right, Skip, Coach Rivera has no issue, but do you have a problem with this?
Stephen A. Smith, last night when I first heard about this, I thought about having a problem with it, and then I was told that they have regularly done this going back into last year. Now, I'm not sure if they've regularly done it actually during a game, but this was quite a game. It's 38-0 over a division rival. And so if I'm correct about this, the game was still going on when they took this sideline picture, and it sounded like Coach Rivera had a small problem with that. He said, I do want them to maintain focus during the game. I will point out to you that Rivera was part of a 1985 Bears juggernaut that had a music video, probably the first big sports music video.
We are the Bears.
Yes, we are the Bears. And it was great, and it fueled that team the whole year. And a lot of people thought, oh, that's out of bounds, self-promotion, blah, 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 because we'd never seen anything quite like that before. And yet Rivera knows that that was great for that team. And as he pointed out, you can't lose who you are, and the personality of this team is to win and celebrate, and I don't have any problem with it because it is working. But I will point out what another great coach once called, Jerry Glanville, not a great coach, but an interesting coach. Jerry Glanville once called the NFL the not-for-long league, and it's a humbling league. It sort of eats its own, if you will. Just when you think you're riding high and you're invincible, the injury gods strike. And so far, they've been pretty good to the Panthers, pretty good. Looked like Greg Olsen had a knee injury the other day, and then he didn't have a knee injury. And it looked like Jonathan Stewart had a bad ankle injury, and then he seems like he's going to be okay. So things are going okay, except for one small thing that I saw that did trouble me. To your point yesterday, you got to meet Charles Johnson during his bye week. Am I right about that?
Yes, that is correct.
And then I saw that he tweeted after the Atlanta game that he had a problem with being pulled from that game in the fourth quarter because he wanted to play. Well, he deleted the tweets, obviously, but it was the first crack in the foundation of a core player having an issue with the coaching staff on Twitter right after the game, a game that they won 38-0. That was a bad sign to me because that's a shot at the unity of your team. That's making you more important than the team. And I was shocked by that. So that was the first small crack of a problem that I saw in the foundation.
I think that's overblown. I think that Charles Johnson has a healthy level of disdain for the Atlanta Falcons, and he wanted to be on the field for every minute while the Carolina Panthers were stomping them into the ground. That's all that was about. I don't think it was about anything else. So I'm certainly not going to overblow that. That's number one. Number two, I have no problem with it at all because, listen, you're playing the kind of game where if you want to shut them up, you have every opportunity to do so. So it's not one of those things where they're like the big bullies on the block and, you know, they're at a decided advantage and they're rubbing it in your face. They're going out there and they're competing against one opponent after another and they're mowing them down. And if that means that they want to feel a certain level of bravado and express themselves, so be it. And I think that, listen, here's the problem that I have with some of these questions. And it's not for me to critique or I'm certainly not going to speak negatively or denigrate any reporters or anything like that. But I'm just speaking from a macro perspective. You know, anytime you see a bunch of guys out there, listen, black folks express themselves different than other folks do. And the majority of those players you saw there, if not all of them, were African-American. There's a little flavor and a little flair, a little style, a little pizzazz to them. That's just who they are. That's just how they roll. All their teammates were welcome to join. Some of them probably elected not to. Others were all for it. It's what they do, you know, and it's how it goes. Cam Newton usually scores a touchdown or throws a touchdown or whatever and grabs a football and he goes over and gives it to a little kid. Now all the players have joined in doing that stuff. There's a lot of positives that come associated with the Carolina Panthers that doesn't necessarily deserve scrutiny, particularly when you're 13-0. So for people to inquire, certainly they're doing their job, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it does also make you wonder about what's the intent behind that level of inquiry, because you've got people that may indeed themselves be uncomfortable with that stuff. Cam Newton dancing in the end zone and stuff like that. I'm here to tell you, a lot of folks had a problem with it. I don't know a brother or sister that had a problem with him doing that in the end zone. We didn't have any problem with it at all. We thought it was pretty good. So, you know, it's just about a style. It's about a culture. It's about people that do things a bit differently. And as long as you don't lose sight of the bottom line, which clearly they have not, because they are undefeated, what's the problem?
Okay, there's no problem. And all of this to me feels like feel-good momentum. It feels like unstoppable momentum. In fact, at this moment, I cannot make a case for anybody in the NFC beating the Panthers before the Panthers get to the Super Bowl. I just can't make a case because it sure looks like they're going to wind up with 2 home games to the Super Bowl. I just don't think anybody can go in there and beat them. But here's my point. In the big picture, when you start celebrating and taking pictures during the game, you are going to create resentment on the other sideline. You might create resentment on lots of sidelines that a lot of players are going to say, who do they really think they are? And you're going to make it harder and harder because you're going to create more and more motivation in your opponent. That's all I'm saying is you're going to have to pay that piper at some point.
Well, but here's the argument that I'm making. Shouldn't that be a cause for us as sports spectators to celebrate rather than denigrate or be skeptical about? Because here's the thing, that very pressure that you're alluding to, doesn't that elevate the level of interest? Aren't we sitting back and saying, excuse me, now you're going to have to back it up. If you run the table for the regular season, how is it going to look for you if you lose in the postseason? Oh, by the way, suddenly Seattle, the Legion of Boom, their pride, their chest is going to stick out. And they're like, we're not going to wilt beneath this. The Arizona Cardinals with Carson Palmer and that high-powered offense with Bruce Arians running the show. Oh, we're not going to sit back and take this. The bad man that is Aaron Rodgers, despite the absence of Jordy Nelson. Oh, just going to sit back and take this?
I agree.
Whoever comes out of the East, what you going to do about it? The point is, it elevates the level of interest.
Okay.
So why are we not talking about this in a fashion that says, all right, y'all doing this, we love it, but that's adding more pressure to it, because if we know it, we know the players know it. They're obviously willing to accept the responsibility and culpability that comes with it. What's the problem? If anything, it should put us all on our toes and make us even more interested in seeing a more compelling matchup because we know cats are going to try to come at them. We know they know it, and they expect to be ready for it. So rather than celebrating it and saying, wow, this is a reason to be even more excited about watching the Panthers, instead we're sitting here saying, well, should they be doing that? And I just don't think that's right. They're undefeated. They're the baddest boys on the block right now, and they're telling you they are coming and daring you to do something about it. Last time I checked, in the world of sports, that's something to celebrate. That ain't something to beat down.
Okay, but history would tell you they're getting into a dangerous place because I can just show you. We don't have time to go through all the cases.
You're right.
Of a team rose up and was just full of itself, and all of a sudden, when you least expected it, it got knocked on its tail. Okay?
So and when they get knocked out, when they get knocked out, so what?
Okay, all right.
That's what we want to see.
But now I go back to the '85 Bears again. They were so good. They steamrolled everybody, including the New England Patriots, in the Super Bowl because the defense, I think it was the greatest defense ever, and they got away with a pretty average quarterback, Jim McMahon, and the Panthers do not have an average quarterback. They have right now the best quarterback in the National Football League on stats, on performance.
On a lesser level, we just saw Odell Beckham Jr. do what he did, right? Well, haven't we heard Josh Norman talking? Now, I love Josh Norman. Met him when he was on NFL Countdown a few weeks. The brother's the baddest boy as a quarterback in the NFL right now. Well, guess who's coming? Well, guess who's coming to town? It's Odell Beckham Jr. We shall see. This is what it's all about.
Yeah,
this is what it's all
they're
about.
going to town. But
Meadowlands.
Yeah, they're going to town.
Speaking of that game, Jonathan Stewart has a sprained foot, and his status for Sunday's game is unclear. Hey, sometimes you're drinking the wine, sometimes you're picking the grapes. Right now, they're drinking the wine and certainly enjoying it. Classic that never gets old. He has been entertaining us on the big screen for years. This will be his 4th feature film this year. We can always count on Mark Wahlberg to bring his A game. His new movie, Daddy's Home, will be in theaters Christmas Day. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Will Ferrell running a little bit late. Sorry to step on you there, Stephen A. He won't be able to join us, but you're here. You're here to represent, holding down the fort. So tell us about the new movie. What's it all about?
Well, Will is the stepdad to my biological kids, and I decide, that I'm going to come home and reclaim my family. So we're basically trying to outdo each other for the affection of my ex-wife and the kids, and it just becomes absolutely crazy.
It looks hilarious.
It is, and that really, when we shot that at a Pelicans-Lakers game, we didn't tell the audience, the crowd, what we were shooting, and so it went viral that Will was drunk and showed up on the court and ripped the basketball out of hit the cheerleader.
Oh, that's tremendous.
He knocked the poor woman out, right?
She's a stunt woman, so we did multiple takes, but every time she would want to do as many as possible because every time she does, she gets paid.
Oh.
But it looked like Will was having a little too much fun.
Yeah, it did. Got to ask you about the team that's dearest to your heart, the New England Patriots, and your man Tom Brady. And if I remember in Ted 2, he threw you a perfect spiral from the balcony with Ted. Remember that?
Yeah.
Perfect spiral. How did you react through the offseason, through Deflategate, as it came clear that America, in its court of public opinion, had branded Tom Brady a cheater and a liar?
It wasn't fun to watch, but knowing the man as well as I do, I knew eventually, he would be able to clear his name. It was crazy. It seems like, whether it was that or a spy, it's always something against the Patriots. It's hard being that good. It's hard for Tom being that good looking. But, somebody's got to do it.
True.
Did you ever have any doubt he would have a hard time clearing his name? Did he have a hard time winning in court?
You know what? I didn't think so. I just sent him a message saying, keep your head up, and he was like, hey, I'm fine. It's going to be all right. And so it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, let me ask you this, because I'll ask you a question about your career because I think it's real phenomenal what you've been doing. But let me stay with the Deflategate for a second because my opinion is a tad bit different from Skip in this respect. I think you have a right to know.
Yes, sir.
I don't give a damn if Tom Brady was throwing Nerf footballs. As far as I'm concerned, he's still one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. And nothing can impugn his greatness as a quarterback. My only issue is I find it very hard to believe that the guy who touches the balls more than anybody else, which is the quarterback, knew absolutely nothing about the balls being deflated. How do you feel about people What do you think about people who think that kind of thought about it?
Everybody has their own opinion, and they're entitled to it. It doesn't affect how I feel or how I think, and how I view the game in particular, or the situation. So, God bless them. They must be Jets fans. Got to be Jets fans.
I got you. Go ahead, Skip.
In your career, you played a basketball player and a pro football player, boxer. You've had aspirations to be, at one point, maybe even a professional golfer. Would you give up all that you've achieved, which is a lot, to be one of those guys, to be a Tom Brady?
If you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, yes. But now I'm pretty satisfied with my job and my position, and the ability to have longevity. I've always kind of approached my career as an athlete would, and knowing that you've only got a certain amount of time to really perform at the highest level. But you look at Denzel and guys like that; those guys are still doing it, for a long time. So they've got the third quarter and the fourth quarter.
Right.
It could still be on
Sure.
top.
Which of those athletic roles did you feel most comfortable playing?
Probably Mickey Ward.
Really?
Yeah, Mickey Ward.
As a boxer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially Mickey being a Boston guy. I mean, obviously Boston is a great sports town, right? But Mickey was from Boston. He was one of us, We felt like, okay, we could do what he did. And, that role took like 4.5 years to get the movie made. And so I continued to train. And I wanted to look and feel like a guy who could win the welterweight title.
Let me transition, from this perspective. I mean, I loved you in The Departed, but I also loved you in Four Brothers. I love you in Transformers, Two Guns with you and Denzel as well. You've played a myriad of roles. If somebody asked you, how did you get to this point where the level of versatility that you've put on display has obviously been sensational, but how did you pull it off? What would your answer be to them? How did you get to this point in your career where you were able to pull off such, just an amalgamation of things, so many different things that you've done?
Putting in the work, the time and effort and preparation, I've always felt like, and I've always looked at my career being a marathon, not a sprint, and kind of growing slowly, working with good people that will always kind of elevate your game, but being prepared, I work much harder than everybody else, I know it's also being in the right place at the right time. Luck has a little bit to do with it, but for the most part, it's about preparation.
Let me transition back to
Stephen A.
sports. I want to transition back to sports because I happen to know that you're a fan of Manny Pacquiao. So I have to ask you your thoughts about Manny Pacquiao. Now, I love Manny, Mark. I really, really do. But I knew he was going to lose to Floyd because I knew that Floyd was a defensive wizard. I'm so sorry that you and others disagreed with me. I must ask you, as you look at Manny getting ready to end his career, what kind of thoughts come through your mind about Manny Pacquiao, particularly when the last time you saw him in the ring, he tore his rotator cuff, missing about 400 blows?
Well, I think it was torn in training, but
thank you.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I'm
not sure about that.
I was at Wild Card, but even funny. I mean, Manny's a great guy. I love the family man that he is. He's a devout Catholic. It's all about his family, and he and I share that. But I'm getting phone calls after the fight from a Vegas number, from a 702 number, and I think it's Dana White because it's like, Mark, call 911. So finally, I call back. I'm like, hello? He's like, it's Floyd, Mark. What's up? I'm like, Floyd. Shouldn't you be out celebrating right now? He's calling me 5 o'clock in the morning. I've been friendly with Floyd for a long time, too. And I know he was upset that I liked Manny, but Manny and I were just friendly. And Floyd, can arguably say now that he's one of the greatest right there with Rocky Marciano. But I think timing-wise...
So wait, was he trying to rub it in? Or
he rubbed it in, yes. He rubbed it in.
And did you take it well?
I took it well. I took it on the chin. I was a man about it. He won the fight. He's one of the greatest of all time. But Manny was he's a friend of mine, so I was going to root for him, and I thought if anybody had a chance, he had a chance. But yeah, Floyd rubbed it in, and I saw him at a Clipper game, and he rubbed it in again. I took it.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So give us some insight into your partner in this movie, Will Ferrell, and his comedic genius. Let's go back to Anchorman, his breakthrough. It got lukewarm at best reviews. And as you know, it has emerged as as a classic. Now it's those same critics now have a top 5 all-time comedies.
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts on what worked in Anchorman and why he is so gifted at what he does.
Well, I mean, it's a God-given gift to be that funny, but what's so special about him and what makes him different is that his comedy comes from a nice place. Most comics you meet, they're kind of dark, weird guys, right?
It's true.
I mean, I remember seeing, I don't want to say somebody's name, the first famous person I saw in Hollywood was a famous comedian, and I yelled out his name and waved, and he turned around and gave me the finger. And I was like, and I confronted him about it 20 years later. He came to see me.
Were you kind of a nobody at this point?
I was just a kid. It was the first time in L.A. Okay. And then he came to see me after screening Boogie Nights. I said, oh, we actually met before. But Will is just a nice guy. His comedy comes from a nice place. He enjoys making people laugh. He also is a nice family man. You know, his personal life and his professional life are very different. And he's great to work with, you know, and he wants other people around him to succeed as well. He has a producer mentality like myself where, you know, if you're good in the movie but nobody else is, the movie's not going to work. And he really worries about the movie as a whole. And, you know, that's a rare thing.
And he's extemporaneous, right? Just riffing off.
Oh, yeah, we'll go. One of his favorite things to do is get me to ruin a take by laughing out loud. But we improvise a lot. You know, we'll kind of shoot what's on the page and then we'll just riff. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And do you enjoy that, Mark? I mean, because, listen, you're from the streets of Boston, and you know, you're no punk. You're pretty hardcore yourself. But you're talking about a guy that's just fun-loving, very affable, and just a nice, decent guy. You know, people who know you to be that way as well, but you don't take any mess from anybody either. So do you enjoy that, the softer side, or are you more comfortable with what you're more familiar with, which we know to be a harder side?
No, it's nice to be able to finally let your guard down and just be a 44-year-old man who, the only time Will and I have any difference is about sports. Whether we're playing sports against each other or we both, while we're making this movie, travel to Arizona for the Super Bowl, and him being a big Pete Carroll Seahawks fan, that was the only time we had an issue, you know. But and we know how that turned out.
And what was that issue like? Enlighten us. What was that issue like? He was rooting for Pete Carroll in Seattle, and that was against your Patriots. What was that like, Mark?
I just kept asking him after the game, if I could have Pete Carroll's number to call him and thank him for throwing that ball with Malcolm Butler. I mean, my God, we were
Super Bowl history.
We were in. You know, I never gone to a Super Bowl because I get too upset if they lose. But I promised my sons, I said, if the Patriots go to the Super Bowl, I'll go. And, you know, we went from celebrating, of course, in the owner's box to now all of a sudden there's the tip pass and, you know, he caught the ball and, you know, security's now leaving that owner's box to go to the other owner's box because now you're not going down to the field to celebrate. And then, you know, you didn't give the ball to Marshawn Lynch.
Wow.
I was like, just give him the ball quick and at least maybe we'll get another chance to go downfield and score. Something happened, a miracle happened on our side, and it actually did.
So do you ever sit back now after all you have achieved and think, how did this kid from this rough neighborhood in Boston get to here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's, it's one of those things where that's why I try to do so much with inner city kids and with our foundation and at-risk youth. And I talk to a lot of athletes and kids coming up who find themselves in a position like this that, you know, it wasn't supposed to happen. And most of my friends are dead or in jail. And, you know, that's why I'm so fortunate.
What did you do differently? Where was that turning point?
Well, when I got in trouble, and I was like, you know what, I don't like this. This is not for me. I don't like being told what to do and when to do it. And then, but I knew I needed to do the right thing. And when I started working hard and doing the right thing, good things started happening. So, you know, I just got to be an example in that way, you know, to my kids and to other kids growing up in situations like that. There isn't anything you can't accomplish. The only way you do it is the right way. Working hard, you know, athletics, you got to do it the right way. You got to be natural, you know. So those are the keys for me.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So appreciate the time. This was
Thank
fun.
you guys.
Hope you get
All the
to
best to you,
enjoy
bro.
the holiday season a little bit. Kind of a busy year for you. So.
Yeah. Oh, crazy with the kids and everything else.
Of course. Daddy's
It's good
Home in theaters Christmas Day. Make sure to check that out.
Oh man, Skip, won't you let it go? Just not on every show. Skip, please, please, please let it go.
Well, that just made my life. Oh, tremendous, tremendous, tremendous. All right, with the Giants.
Let it go.
That was the great John Legend.
Yeah, it was.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, I wish we could have
Singing
seen
to
him on
you.
camera. Yeah, he came
in
right
the
here in the
studio.
studio, singing to me and to Stephen A. Smith.
But do you know
That's
why
right.
he was singing to you?
Came Molly, came in studio in February of 2012. Had to tell Skip that about Tim Tebow at the time. He probably said the safety. He's the one that told us to play it again for him with the Cowboys. Thank you, John. Thank you.
Got it. So that was about Tebow. Now he has to let go of something else. Skip continues to hold on. Giants 31-24 win over the Dolphins. They're sitting at 6-7 in the NFC East. That means they're tied for first with the Redskins and Eagles. Dallas, however, in the bottom of the division. As John Legend said it best, I wish I could see that again. Skip, are you ready to let the Cowboys go?
In this division? No, I'm not ready to let it go. I got to give both of you this. The other three teams just survived extremely losable games last Sunday and obviously last night. Give them that. But if I'm right, if I'm adding this up correctly, there's still 3 games to play, right?
Calculating.
Okay, 3 games to go. And number one, I'm going to plunge and go on record right here, right now. My Cowboys will beat the New York Jets on Saturday night at Jerry World. Book it. They will win this game. I loved it that on Jerry Jones' radio show, just got handed these quotes, he is backing Dez Bryant, as he well should. Dez Bryant cannot remotely play as poorly as he did in the rain at Green Bay. I have no idea who that number 88 was. It must have been an imposter. Dez owes his teammates, his owner and general manager, and me a game.
And Skip.
Yeah, he owes me a game.
You hear that?
And he's going to give us all a game. All of Cowboy Nation is going to get a game on Saturday night from Dez Bryant. Now, what happens on Sunday? Could the Eagles lose at home to Arizona? Wait a minute. Arizona's favored by 3.5 points. Is that possible? Am I being wildly optimistic that Arizona could win that game? No, I'm not. Okay? Could your Giants lose at home to Carolina? Carolina is a 6-point favorite at your place. So is it possible your Giants would lose that game?
Possible.
The Redskins, who have gone 8 straight games of 1 loss, 1 loss, 1 loss, 1 loss. They obviously lost their last time at home on Monday night to my Cowboys. So is it possible that they would lose at home on Sunday to Buffalo? It's a pick'em game. Is it? Sure, it's possible that Buffalo would win that game. I just gave you the 3 rivals in the East, none of whom are favored or is favored at home to win this coming Sunday. My Cowboys are a 3-point underdog at Jerry World. Could they pull it off? Sure they could. So, if in fact those 3 lose, the other 3 lose at home, and my team wins as I predict that they will I guarantee that they will on Saturday night, they'd only be 1 game back with 2 games to play. And I ask you again, who has the best defense in the division? It's certainly not your football Giants. We saw that last night. That was a nightmare. It's my Cowboys. Who has the best offensive line in the division? It's not even close. It's my Cowboys. So who has a chance? My Cowboys. And if they finished by, I know it would be a miraculous long shot. If they finished in a tie with somebody or somebodies at 7-9, my Cowboys would then have a division record of 4-2, which would lead the division and give my Cowboys the tiebreaker. So I realize it's a long shot, but I think it's a realistic shot.
Realistic?
Yes, it's a realistic shot. And I would look foolish if I jumped off the bandwagon now like other people I know on this show who jump off and then get forced to jump back on. I'm not jumping off. I love my Dallas Cowboys.
I love,
so take that.
I love your quarterback.
You know, it's not time to let it go. It's time to let it fly, Dez. Let it fly.
The Dallas Cowboys have the 30th ranked offense in the National Football League with the 29th ranked passing attack, with a quarterback in Matt Castle, not Tony Romo, in Matt Castle that completes 58% of his passes. And you think this team, where ESPN's Football Power Index has rated as a 1.2% chance of making the playoffs, you think this team is going to win a division? You brought up the Redskins and their upcoming matchup. You brought up the Eagles playing Arizona. You brought up the Giants playing the Carolina Panthers. You brought up the fact that the Redskins are going to be playing the Buffalo Bills. And you act like the Cowboys are going to win. The Cowboys are not going to win this week. And Skip Bayless, they'll lose Saturday night. It is over. It's becoming, it was laughable. It was laughable as even recently as yesterday. But it's so sad to hear you hold on for dear life. It's like they took you off. They took you off life support. You're dead. It's over. You flatline.
I'm living.
And you just
I'm breathing.
And you just don't want to. Excuse me. There are folks who are breathing that are brain dead. Eventually, the plug is pulled because there is no life. They're brain dead. Your Dallas Cowboys are virtually brain dead. It's over. You've got the owner with a weekly radio show going on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, talking one week after another about Des Bryant or Tony Romo or whatever, keeping them relevant, suckering you into believing just a little bit, hoping beyond hope that something is going to happen. Jerry Jones is playing you, just like he's playing the rest of Cowboy Nation. Cowboys going to finish 5-11, Skip. 5-11 or 6-10. That's their best case scenario at 6-10. They're going to lose one of these games. It's going to probably be the Jets this Saturday.
Probably.
It's over
you said
already.
They were going to.
I'm picking the Jets to win. I'm picking the Jets. I'm picking the Jets to win. You can interrupt all you want to gloss over your idiocy. I said the Jets will win. The Jets will win Saturday night. But the Dallas Cowboys are dead. It's over. And it's just so sad to see you. It's not funny anymore. It's sad to see you in the state that you're in. I mean, it's like you're in such denial. You're worse than addicts. You're worse than addicts. Do you realize that? Yeah. I mean, you're actually worse than addicts out there. You can't accept the fact that it is over. I'm so sad for you, Skip Bayless. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray for you, Skip Bayless. I mean,
I hope that wouldn't be the first time you've ever prayed.
Well, I mean, I'm usually praying for me. You know, you're usually good to go. I'm usually the one who needs prayer. Yeah, I'm usually the one who needs prayer. But in this particular instance, Skip, I'm going to throw my prayer power your way. You need it. Because, see, I am in a very good place. I mean, life is beautiful. You know me, so long as the Cowboys don't win, I'm good. I'm good. And they have already lost. They're dead. It's over. Play it. Take it away, John Legend. Take it away, John Legend. Take it away. Be quiet, Skip. Listen to this man.
Yeah.
Please. Please. Let it go.
Let it go.
You know says it all, Skip.
You know what's not going to be funny?
What's up, Skip?
Late Saturday night, when you realize my Cowboys have won,
I'll be checking Twitter.
and your face falls
You've been
into
saying
that
it all
look
year.
of horror.
Molly, how many times? Molly, I got to get on you.
I know.
I got to get on Miss Connecticut. Molly, you are the moderator, the cop for this show.
Yeah.
How have you not arrested him for his idiocy? How do you continue to let him get away
The warrant is out,
one week
Stephen A.
after
I can't
another,
get him.
Molly, holding out hope? Call him out, Molly.
The warrant is out.
Check him.
I can just see you.
Come on.
Late Saturday night. Oh,
Please.
Lord. I can hear you. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. What am I going to do now? And you'll be sweating. You'll be sweating through that Arizona game and then sweating through that Carolina game and sweating through that Buffalo game, just hoping I'm not right, that it'll be a one-game lead on Monday morning. Then we'll see who's laughing on Monday.
There's a bunch of basketball games going on this weekend. I probably have to cover a couple. So I'm going to be preoccupied. I don't need to watch foregone conclusions. I won't even watch the Jets and the Dallas Cowboys. I'll look at my phone to see the score. But there's no reason for me to watch this drivel. I mean, please. We all know the outcome. It's over. It's over.
It's just beginning.
I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Cowboys will beat the Jets on Saturday night. You heard it here first.
Delusional.
You heard it here first.
You two are hilarious. Let me tell you, my stomach hurts. That might be one of my most favorite segments of all time.
Now, Monday morning, if my Cowboys lose Saturday night, the first thing Monday morning,
Play John Legend.
I will be right here to say it is over.
Molly, refresh my memory. Didn't Skip come on 3 weeks ago and said it was over?
No.
Didn't he say 3 weeks ago it was over?
I
think so.
Yes.
But see, our producers, being the Skip lovers that they are, they won't show that video of Skip eating crow and saying it's over. I give up.
Yeah.
They won't do that. They'll hide those tapes.
No.
Okay?
Stop
it.
One of us said his Super Bowl team, the Indianapolis Colts, are over. One of us let it go on the Colts.
I let it go.
Absolutely.
I'm a realist.
Yeah.
I'm a realist.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was right. You saw what Indy is. Pagano sitting there talking about, I'll be just fine if I lose my job. I'll just go to Idaho with my kids. I'll be just fine. Okay, that's what he said. Yeah. That's what he said. So we know what he's prepping for. Yeah. I mean, please. I was right. I'm a realist.
If the Cowboys lose Saturday night, I'll just go to New York. That's okay. It's all right.
You're going to be there anyway if you're smart.
That's what I will be there.
They ain't having that. You know where to be Saturday night. Don't act like you don't know.
I know.
All right.
Don't act like you don't know.
We leave you with 3 words. Let it go.
You can feel a buzz in the air. You know something special is about to occur.
Clemson, Oklahoma, followed by Alabama, Michigan State. The College Football Playoff, 3 Eastern, New Year's Eve, on ESPN and ESPN Radio.
Last week, Rajon Rondo was ejected by NBA ref Bill Kennedy in a game against Boston in Mexico City. As he was being pulled away from Kennedy by teammates, Rondo called Kennedy a gay slur, 2 sources told ESPN. The NBA subsequently suspended Rondo for 1 game for directing a derogatory and offensive term towards a game official and not leaving the court in a timely manner upon his ejection. Rondo declined to speak with reporters on Monday, but did tweet an apology saying this: "My actions during the game were out of frustration and emotion, period. They absolutely do not reflect my feelings toward the LGBT community. I did not mean to offend or disrespect anyone." Kennedy also issued a statement to Yahoo Sports and announced that he is gay, saying this, quote, "I am proud to be an NBA referee and I am proud to be a gay man. I am following in the footsteps of others who have self-identified in the hopes that will send a message to young men and women in sports that you must allow no one to make you feel ashamed of who you are." All right, there's a lot of pressure here on NBA Commissioner Adam Silver to get this one right. Silver supported Kennedy's actions in a statement to Yahoo, but was Rondo's suspension enough, Stephen A.?
Well, I don't believe it was enough. I think he should have been suspended a minimum of 2 games, possibly 3. But that's only because the commissioner needs to send a message, and obviously 1 game doesn't suffice. Having said all of that, there's a couple of things that we need to point out here. There's several layers. Number 1, Rondo was wrong. He should have never said what he said. Number 2, his tweet, when he said he didn't mean to disrespect anyone, is not entirely accurate. He clearly meant to disrespect Bill Kennedy. That's the one person he meant to disrespect. I do believe he is sincere when he said that he didn't mean any of the derogatory statements that he made wasn't meant towards the LGBT community, because clearly it was directed at one individual who happens to be an official, and officials, whether they like it or not, can be very, very frustrating to players. And so when players react, they're reacting towards that particular official because all they can do is spew words and spew venom, because there's little else they could do because the officials have such a tremendous level of authority over a game. Having said all of that, there's still no excuse for him to do what he did. Although I totally believe him when he says, again, he wasn't trying to be offensive to the LGBT community. Remember, he was a teammate in Boston with Jason Collins. There were no problems there. Rondo isn't known to have any problems with a gay player or what have you. He had a problem with this particular referee, and his word usage was not apropos. It wasn't right. It was obviously wrong, and he needs to be called out for it. But the major reason to me why there's a heightened level of sensitivity, particularly when you're talking about African-American players, you must step back and take into account the situation by simply asking yourself this question. What if a referee or somebody else had aimed the N-word in your direction? How would you have felt? And that alone should give you cause to pause and make sure that you should know better than calling a name out to a particular individual who you obviously knew was gay. It's not like he did not know that. It is true, according to Yahoo Sports. They're absolutely right. A lot of us covering the league knew about the sexual orientation of Bill Kennedy. That's a fact. It's been known for quite some time. When Tim Donaghy, the disgraced referee, wrote his book and he outed Bill Kennedy, people knew about that. It was not a secret, but it is good to hear him come out and acknowledge it for himself with the level of comfort that he seems to have, because he should have never been made to feel uncomfortable. The situation is clear. Rondo was wrong, but his comments were directed at a specific individual who he had disdain for at that moment, as opposed to the LGBT community. But you still got to know better, and Adam Silver has to send that message, and a one-game suspension can't suffice.
By the way, quick point of order. I think Donaghy first referred to Bill Kennedy's sexual orientation while doing an interview on a Boston radio station, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was first, but he also referred to him later on in a book or something like that. So, yeah.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. I agree with you to a point, but I'm going to take it a little farther. This is just me, and walk me through this. To me, this verbal attack was so out of bounds. It was so vile, so offensive, so disgusting to me. This is just my take on it. And it was so very public because it's out in the court. I just watched the video for the first time this morning. Happened in Mexico City, obviously. Didn't make news that much at the time. But it was so out of line that it's hard for me to believe that Rondo only is suspended for one game. To me, this is much long. It's got to be a 10-game suspension. No,
I don't go that far.
Okay, well, to me, and again, I'm going to have to rely on you. I'm going to assume that the powers that be at the league office knew of his sexual orientation. Is that, would you
That's
assume
what I'm told.
that?
I have not confirmed that, but I have been told that, yes.
Okay, I could see if they didn't know of his sexual orientation, they would think he was just using foul language, and they would say it's a one-game suspension. But to me, this is right there with bumping, any kind of physicality directed toward a referee. This should be much worse. 10 games, just to send a message. It's just so out of bounds, and it forced this referee, it seems like from a distance, to say, well, I now got to declare myself, to go ahead and defend myself here and to put this in the right context, that he says, I'm a gay man. And it's only a one-game, he didn't, Bill Kennedy didn't say this, I'm saying this, but it's only a one-game suspension. I just don't get it, Stephen A., and I don't know, again, exactly what everybody knows or didn't know, but if everybody knows, as you assume, it has to be more than one game, and to me it has to be more than 2 games.
Well, it definitely, I have no problem with a 3-game suspension, like I said earlier. And if you use the analogy that it's tantamount to bumping a referee, which obviously would warrant more than a 3-game suspension,
it would.
That's a point I did not think about. You have a very valid point there, because it can be measured to the same degree as bumping a referee. All I'm trying to say is very clear. It's very simple to me. The fact that you knew about the man's sexual orientation, and you said that, is entirely different than, let's say, Kobe Bryant spewing the word a few years back when he got fined $100,000. He didn't know the guy's sexual orientation from a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
He was just upset at a no call that took place.
Okay.
Well, the issue here is those of us who cover the NBA have been led to believe, I don't know for sure because obviously I didn't speak to Rajon Rondo, but those of us who cover the NBA have been led to believe that Rondo specifically knew about Bill Kennedy's sexual orientation because when he played in Boston, it was believed to have been known then, and somebody like Doc Rivers knew about it, which means his players knew about it, etc. Those are the kind of things, the Frank Isolas of the world, who does an exceptional job of covering the NBA for the New York Daily News. He wrote about it today, along with several others, Adrian Wojnarowski. All of these guys are great. They know what they're talking about. So I'm just saying that if Rondo knew, then that takes on an entirely different connotation than somebody who didn't know. And I get your point about it being tantamount to bumping a referee. The flip side is that you're an official. You're calling a game. You have the authority to influence a game and a player's activity in the game. And that lack of power, particularly when it's working against you, can frustrate you to such a degree that you're incredibly emotional and you spew the wrong thing. That doesn't excuse it. You can't let it go, but understand it in its context as opposed to labeling it as him being homophobic.
Okay. And the final point I would like to make is, I know Rondo apologized via Twitter, but whether he likes it or not, the slur he used, the vitriol he spewed, by association is not just aimed at this one referee, it's aimed at the LGBT community, whether he likes it or not. I'm sorry, that's how many in that community will and should take that.
Which is why I brought up the N-word. Because as a black man, that's how he would have embraced it. If you heard a referee say that to a player, every black player would have raised their eyebrows and taken notice. But again, when you're young, you may not know better. And so Rondo learns from this, suspend the man for a few games, and allow him to move on.
We all wear labels. Nothing good comes out of insulting and demeaning people, that is for sure.
Absolutely.
In the NFL, the Patriots were able to capitalize on losses by the Bengals and Broncos this weekend to reclaim the top seed in the AFC, but the Chiefs also defeated San Diego 10-3 and extended their winning streak to 7. So right now, the Chiefs and Jets would be the two wild cards in the AFC, which would leave the Steelers on the outside looking in. Stephen A., you have the Chiefs missing the playoffs, correct?
Yes, I do.
How come?
Well, listen, I just assume they're going to lose one more of their games, and I think the Steelers are going to run the table. I think the Steelers are going to beat Denver this week. I think they're going to close out the season beating Baltimore at Baltimore and in Cleveland at Cleveland. I know Johnny Manziel's in Cleveland, and he'll have them buzzing in the season finale. They're playing with house money. They'll have absolutely nothing to lose. You're going up against the 31st ranked defense against the pass in the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I understand that it's a lot of reasons for trepidation. But in the end, I think the Steelers' high-powered offense can ultimately close the deal, and I'm going to assume that the Jets will win as well. Now, obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs have a soft schedule, the softest schedule of the three. They're on a roll right now. Andy Reid is doing a phenomenal job, but I'm just hoping that the game manager himself, Alex Smith, will show up and not be able to get it done. I could see the Chiefs losing Week 17 against the Raiders, although it's in Kansas City. I could see a miracle happening and them lose to the Ravens at Baltimore, particularly when the Ravens just got shellacked by Seattle last week. I could see those possibilities. And so when I look at it from that perspective and I look at the Steelers' high-powered offense, I'm just of the mindset that the Steelers and the Jets will find a way to get in here. Not ultra confident about it because, again, the Chiefs do have a relatively patsy schedule, at least based on record against the opponents. But I picked the Jets, so I ain't going against that, whereas Skip picked the Bills to make the playoffs. And I'm not going up against my Steelers because, damn it, they're my Steelers with, as far as I'm concerned, the most prolific passing attack in all of football. I'm worried about that damn secondary of theirs that can't defend the pass to save their lives, although A.J. McCarron got intercepted, and that dance by William Gay in the end zone was the funniest dance I saw all week. But I'm going to roll with my Steelers because I'm rooting for them, because I believe in Mike Tomlin, because I believe in Big Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant and Marcus Wheaton and Heath Miller and D'Angelo Williams. I believe in this crew, and I think the Steelers will find a way to meet the Jets, they'll both find a way to make the postseason. And Kansas City, despite their great late surge, will be on the outside looking in because they'll lose one of their last 3 games.
Real quick, Skip, I just wanted to mention they all have to finish 11-5 and win out for the Steelers to get in, and then the Jets would be left out of it.
Okay, got it. So I believe you are viewing this situation strictly with your heart. I get you when you talk about your Steelers. I get that. I believe they'll win out. Denver at Baltimore at Cleveland. I just think they'll win out. I think Kansas City, a team I'm not sure we've even mentioned on this show all year. I could be wrong. I guess we talked about them after Peyton pulled off his minor miracle,
yes,
right? Yeah, we did it the next day. But Kansas City's won 7 straight games, Mr. Smith. And during that streak, they have taken away the football 18 times and given it away only 4 times. That's plus 14 in turnovers over a 7-game win streak. That's an astonishing stat to me. And you mentioned Alex Smith. He's not just a game manager. He is the best game manager in all of football. 15 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions. They're banging the ball with Charkandrick West out of Abilene Christian. You know, like, I don't know what they're doing, but their defense is tied with Carolina for 4th in points allowed. So that's pretty good. Now, is Kansas City going to win out at Baltimore, Cleveland, Oakland? I say yes, which brings me to your Jets, your wild card pick. Your Jets are going to lose Saturday night at Dallas, at Jerry World. They are going to lose. And after they do, they're going to come home and face the New England Patriots, led by this quarterback who wears number 12 named Tom Brady, a Jets killer. And then they finish up at my wild card pick at Buffalo in the season finale. I just think the Jets might lose out instead of win out. And if they lose out, they're going to be the odd team out of the 8 and 5s, I would say, if my math is serving me well here, and I believe it is.
Well, I think everything that you just said, in all seriousness, is valid. Aside from the idiocy of them losing to Dallas in Dallas on Saturday night.
We'll see.
I mean, it's just a waste of our time. That's just a way for you to get headlines. Jerry Jones has contaminated you. Jerry Jones has contaminated you. You know, that's all that's happened. It's a waste of time. I'm not going to even entertain that. But they could lose to New England. That's going to be tough. Or they could be so hyped for New England that if they beat New England, they could have a downward slide at Buffalo to close out the season. Again, I'm hoping against hope. I believe in the Steelers. I'm hoping against hope for the Jets. Because it could easily be the Steelers and the Chiefs who end up in the playoffs as opposed to the Jets, particularly based on the schedule. I'm not immune to that, but I'm just holding on because courage of my convictions, as you so eloquently state, as it pertains to the Jets, my belief in the Steelers, not just my heart, but my belief in that high-powered offense that they have. Kansas City clearly has the easiest schedule. They should make it. But I think something could go wrong, and I think it could come in the form of the Oakland Raiders.
Okay. And I say to you, to quote the great John Legend, just please, please, please let it go, Mr. Smith. Your Jets are going down.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I can't wait for Twitter Saturday night.
So let me get this straight. I need to let go of the 8 and 5 Jets.
Yeah.
But you can hold on to the 4 and 9 Cowboys.
Yeah, it's because of the divisions that one's in the NFC East, one's in the AFC East.
We don't have time.
Tom Brady
we don't have time.
against nobody.
Yeah.
We have other subjects to
the
get
Chiefs
to. We don't have time for your
obviously
nonsense.
without Jamal Charles.
None.
Yeah.
Tonight will be the first time the Celtics and Cavs have met since the playoffs, and Jay Crowder says he'll be waiting for an apology from one J.R. Smith. Crowder's season ended in Game 4 of their playoff series when he sprained his left ACL after a serious backhand from J.R. Smith. Smith was ejected and suspended for 2 games, but hasn't yet apologized. Stephen A., should J.R. apologize tonight?
Well, he absolutely should. First of all, Crowder's a big boy, so you know, you don't necessarily want him coming at you. And it's not like JR's LeBron James. He's no punk or anything like that. Please don't get me wrong. But I'm going to repeat, Crowder's a big boy. And he was clearly sucker punched. There's no question about that. And it's hard for me because usually, even though J.R. Smith has had incidences, it's the complete antithesis of who he is. As a guy, Skip, if you talk to him and get to know him, JR is actually not a bad guy at all, but he's had some incidences in his career where that brings that kind of thought process into question. I'm sure JR didn't mean to hurt the dude's ACL. It was pretty much because of how Crowder fell, because he was basically, you know, knocked damn near unconscious, for crying out loud, by being sucker punched while battling for a rebound. I don't think JR meant to do that, but he did it nevertheless, and he should apologize. Because if he doesn't apologize, if you're Crowder, particularly during the regular season, well, who knows what kind of retaliation you might exact. We're not advocating that, of course.
Yeah.
We certainly wouldn't do that here. But you can't rule anything out if a guy sucker punches you like that and then refuses to apologize. I mean, that brings your manhood into question to a lot of guys. So it's nothing wrong with JR saying, look, I didn't mean to do that. It was my mistake and I apologize. There's nothing wrong with him extending that olive branch to Crowder, because if he doesn't, I'm going to repeat. That's a big boy. You might not want to do that.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
I am with you on this. The JR I know isn't exactly the enforcer type. This seemed a little out of character, although, like you say, then there have been other times when you say, what was that about, JR? He also doesn't strike me, though, as the apologizing type. I agree with you. He owes Jay Crowder the apology. It would probably be wise to apologize, but I don't know if JR has that in him either. So I would bet against his apologizing. Now, question back to you. Is it possible that this was some form of retaliation? Because you know what happened earlier in the game. Kelly Olynyk of the Celtics got tangled up with Kevin Love, maybe held on a little too long, wound up knocking Kevin Love out of the playoffs with a shoulder injury. So is there any way, again, not retaliation aimed at Kelly Olynyk, but at Boston in general? I don't know. It didn't seem like 2 + 2 would equal 4, but you tell me.
Well, there were opportunities to get at Kelly Olynyk if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So certainly, I mean, it's possible, but I sincerely doubt it, because you could have gotten at Kelly Olynyk and you chose not to. Not to mention the fact that the blow got you suspended and really put LeBron James and those boys behind the 8 ball, too.
Agreed.
So that didn't help.
Nope, it didn't help. And yet I agree with you. It was such a cheap shot that it hits Jay Crowder in the face, and he goes down so hard he sprained his ACL, and they were fortunate that they're about to be eliminated from the playoffs, so it didn't cost the Celtics anymore after that. But again, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that where a man got struck so hard in the face that he sprained his ACL. That's how cheap the shot was and how violent it was.
Stephen A., do you think he'll apologize?
Knowing JR, it's hard to say. I would like to believe if he was asked, he'd say something along the lines, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to do that. But him uttering the words, I'm sorry, Jay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's in JR.
I don't either.
But he
I don't
should.
think it is. And
by the way,
should. For the record, Olynyk says that he sent an apologetic text to Kevin Love and that Love answered it, so Olynyk took it as sort of quote-unquote apology accepted. At least they had some communication, but none so far between Jay Crowder and Jay.
By the way, Kelly Olynyk can play a little bit.
He can play.
I watched him Friday night.
I know, he's pretty good. He's been making
good.
big shots, and he can shoot the three. Yeah,
I love what Danny Ainge is doing in Boston. He deserves a lot of credit.
That game's going to be fun tonight.
Yeah.
Skip.
Let it go.
How'd you know?
I knew you were going to say it. It's okay.
Let it go.
Let it go. I'm not going to let it go.
Saturday, are you going to be sitting or standing during the game?
Both.
Stephen A.?
Let it go, let it go, let it go.
I love that
rendition.
Thank, Mark Wahlberg for being with us. That was fun, too. Have a great day, everybody. Appreciate you listening to the pod. Catch First Take weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern in the rear at 1 p.m. Eastern, as always, on The Deuce.
Houston has an offense that's among the most explosive in the nation. Florida State's defense ranks 5th in points allowed. They go head-to-head in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, 11:30 Eastern New Year's Eve on ESPN Radio.